At first, nothing feels different. There is no argument, no betrayal, no dramatic goodbye. Just a quiet moment when you realize the conversations don't reach you anymore, the laughter doesn't land the same, and the version of you that once belonged there has gently moved on. This is the story of how people don't always leave your life loudly. Sometimes you outgrow them quietly. Once upon a time, in a small countryside town where lives intertwined easily, there lived a young man who valued loyalty above everything else. He had grown up with the same group of people. They shared childhood roads, long afternoons, simple dreams, and the comfort of familiarity. These were the people who knew his past, and because of that, he believed they would always understand his future. For a long time that felt true. They met often, talked about work, money, plans that never quite changed. They laughed about the same stories, complained about the same frustrations, and measured progress by how little had shifted. But slowly, something in him began to change. Not in a way that was obvious to others, only to himself. He started wanting quieter mornings instead of noisy evenings. He found meaning in reading, in solitude, in improving his craft. He became more intentional with his time, more careful with his energy. When he spoke about these changes, the room felt unfamiliar. Some people joked about him becoming too serious. Others dismissed his thoughts as temporary. A few reminded him not to forget where he came from. So he stopped explaining. Not because he felt superior, but because he realized he no longer needed permission to grow. The gatherings continued, but he began to feel like a visitor in conversations he once belonged to. Topics that once excited him now felt repetitive. Complaints that once bonded them now drained him. He noticed how he left these meetings feeling smaller, not lighter. At first, he blamed himself. He wondered if he was becoming distant, if he was abandoning people who had been there for him, if growth required sacrificing loyalty. So he tried harder, he stayed longer, listened more, adjusted himself back into old spaces. But something honest became clear. He wasn't growing apart because he no longer cared. He was growing apart because he was no longer the same person. One evening, after a familiar gathering, he walked home alone under a fading sky. The road was quiet, his steps were slow, and in that silence a difficult truth surfaced. Outgrowing people doesn't mean you think less of them. It means the version of you they know no longer exists, and trying to remain that version was costing him his peace. He didn't announce his distance, he didn't cut anyone off. He simply began choosing alignment over attachment. He declined invitations that felt forced. He spent more time alone without guilt. He stopped shrinking himself to preserve comfort. Some people noticed, some didn't. A few took it personally. But something unexpected happened. His life felt calmer. His thoughts felt clearer. His sense of self felt whole. New connections entered quietly. People who met him where he was, not where he had been. Conversations felt nourishing instead of draining. Silence felt safe instead of awkward. Years later, when he looked back, he understood something with compassion. Outgrowing people isn't rejection, it's recognition. And sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for yourself and for others is to allow growth to create distance without turning it into conflict. With time, he learned that growth does not always announce itself with endings. Sometimes it simply changes your capacity for certain spaces. He understood that loyalty does not require self-abandonment, and that staying connected to people who no longer align with who you are becoming can quietly erode your peace. Outgrowing others is not a failure of character, it is a sign of inner movement. And when he stopped forcing old connections to fit a new version of himself, he discovered that growth feels gentler when it is allowed to happen without explanation, without blame, and without guilt.